Assalamu alaikum students, this is your teacher Muhammad Umar Khatak for the subject Project Management, and this is our 30th lecture and chapter number 11. And today the topic of our discussion is post control. Post control. Post controls, also known as post performance controls or reviews, or post project controls or reviews, are applied after the fact. One might draw parallels between post controls and looking the barn after the horse has been stolen. But post control is not a vain attempt to alter what has already occurred. Instead, it is a full recognition of George Santayana's observation that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Cybernetic and go-no-go controls are directed towards accomplishing the goals of an ongoing project. Post controls is directed towards improving the chances for future projects to meet their goals. The project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK, recognizes the value of what is called organizational process assets, OPA, and contains the formal policies, procedures, and guidelines applying to projects. The OPA also contains the lessons learned knowledge base that contains historical information regarding activities list used by previous similar projects that can be considered when defining project schedule activities. Post control is applied through a relatively formal document that is usually constructed with four distinct sections. Let's talk about the first section of the post control process. The project objectives. The post-control report will contain a description of the objectives of the project. Usually this description is taken from the project proposal, and the entire proposal often appears as an appendix to the post-control report. As reported here, project objectives include the effects of all change orders issued and approved during the project. Because actual project performance depends in part on uncontrollable events like strikes, weather, failure of trusted suppliers, sudden loss of key members, and other acts of God, the key initial assumptions made about risk during preparation of the project budget and schedule should be noted in this section. A certain amount of care must be taken in reporting these assumptions. They should not be written with a tone that makes them appear to be excuse for poor performance. At the same time, it is useful to remember that brevity is a virtue when writing post-control reports on routine projects unless the uncontrollable events are apt to occur with some frequency. While it is clearly the prerogative, if not the duty, of every project manager to protect him or herself politically, he or she should do so in moderation to the effective. Milestones, checkpoints, and budgets. This section of post-control documents starts with a full report of project performance against the planned schedule and budget. This can be prepared by combining and editing the various project status reports made during the project's life. Significant deviations of actual schedule and budget from planned schedule and budget should be highlighted. The final report on project results. When significant variations of actual from planned project performance are indicated, no distinction is made between favorable and unfavorable variation. Like the tongue that invariably goes to sore tooth, project managers focus their attention on trouble. While this is quite natural, it leads to complete documentation on why some things went wrong and little or no documentation on why some things went particularly well. Not only do most projects result in outputs that are more or less acceptable, most projects operate with a process that is more or less acceptable. The concern here is not what the project did, but rather on how it did it. Basically descriptive, this part of the final report should cover project organization, an explanation of the methods used to plan and direct the project, and a review of the communication networks, monitoring systems, and control methods, as well as discussion of intra project interactions between the various working groups. Recommendation for performance and process improvement. The culmination of post-control report is a set of recommendations covering the ways that the future projects can be improved. Many of the explanations appearing in the previous sections are related to one-time happenings, sickness, weather, strikes, or the appearance of new technology, that of themselves are not apt to affect future projects, although other different one-time events may affect them. But some of the deviations from plan were caused by happenings that are very likely to recur. Examples of recurring problems might be of a chronically late supplier, a generally non cooperative functional department, a habitually optimistic cost estimator, or a highly negative project team member. Provisions for such things can be factored into future project plans, thereby adding to predictability and control. This is a risk identification and management in practice. The process of organizing and conducting projects can be improved by recommending the continuation of managerial methods and organizational systems that appear to be effective, together with the alterations of practices and procedures that do not. In this way, the conduct of projects will become smoother, just as the likelihood of achieving good results, on time and on cost, is increased. It is essential to remember that we need not wait for the next generation of projects to introduce more effective methods for managing projects. We can usually introduce them when they are discovered. After clearing them with PMO or whatever body controls the organization's project management protocol, project management is a steadily evolving science. Thoughtful project managers and project workers help it evolve. Post controls can have a considerable impact on the way projects are run. A large market driven company is in consumer household products developed new products through projects that were recognized and organized in matrix form, but had a functional tie to the marketing division. Project managers were always almost chosen from the marketing area. Members of the project team who represented research and development had argued that they should be given a leadership role, particularly early in the project's life. Marketing resisted this suggestion on the grounds that R&D people were not on market oriented, did not know what would sell, and were mainly interested in pursuing their own academic interests. After reading the perennial research and development request in the post control report, the program manager of one product line decided to recognize a project as requested by research and development. The result was not merely a successful project, but was the first in a series of related projects based on the extension of ideas generated by a research and development group, not restricted to work on the specific product sought by marketing. Following these successful experiments, project organization was modified to include more input from research and development at an earlier stage of the project. There is no need to repeat the information requirement for the post control here. It should be noted, however, that we have not discussed the post control audit, a full review and audit of all aspects of the project. The post control report is a major source of input for the post control audit. Now let's talk about the design of the control system. Irrespective of the type of control used, there are some important questions to be answered when designing any control system. Who sets the standards? How realistic are the standards? How clear are they? Will they achieve the project goals? What output activities behaviors should be monitored? Should we monitor people? What kind of sensors should be used? Where should they be placed? How timely must the monitoring be? How rapidly must it be reported? How accurate must the sensors be? How great must the difference between a standard and actual be before it becomes actionable? What corrective actions are available? Are they ethical? What are the most appropriate actions for each situation? What rewards and penalties can be used? Who should take what action? If the control system is to be acceptable to those who will use it and to those who will be controlled by it, the system must be designed so that it appears to be sensible. Standards must be achievable by mechanical systems used. Control limits must be appropriate to the needs of the client, that is, not merely set to show how good we are. Like punishments, rewards, and penalties should fit the crime. In addition to being sensible, a good control system should also possess some other characteristics. The system should be flexible. Where possible, it should be able to react to and report unforeseen changes in system performance. The system should be cost effective. The cost of control should never exceed the value of control. As we noted above, control is not always less expensive than scrap. One study has found that the cost of control in project ranges from as much as 5% of the total project cost for small projects to less than 1% for every large project. The control system must be truly useful. It must satisfy the real needs of the project, not the whims of the project manager. The system must operate in an ethical manner. The system must operate in a timely manner. Problems must be reported while there is still time to do something about them and before they become large enough to destroy the project. Sensors and monitors should be sufficiently accurate and precise to control the project within limits that are truly functional for the client and the parent organization. The system should be as simple as possible to operate. The control system should be easy to maintain. Further, the control system should signal the overall controller if it goes out of order. The system should be capable of being extended or otherwise altered. Control systems should be fully documented when installed, and the documentation should include a complete training program in systems operation. No matter how designed, all control systems we have described use feedback as a control process. Let us consider some more specific aspects of control. To a large extent, the project manager is trying to anticipate problems or catch them just as they begin to occur. The project manager wants to keep the project out of trouble because upper management often bases an incremental funding decision on a review of the project. This review typically follows some particular milestones and, if acceptable, leads to follow on authorization to proceed to the next review point. If all is not going well, other technological alternatives may be recommended, or if things are going badly, the project may be terminated. Thus, the project manager must monitor and control the project quality and quite closely. The control of performance, cost, and time usually requires different input data. To control performance, the project manager must need such specific documentation as engineering change notices, test results, quality checks, rework tickets, scrap rates, and maintenance activities. Of particular importance here is carefully controlling any changes, usually increases in performance due to scope creep, the natural inclination of the customer to change the deliverables as they obtain better information about their needs over time. Scope creep is not always the fault of the customer. However, sometimes the team members themselves, in an effort to do their best work, unwittingly increase the scope of the project. The project manager must be constantly on guard to identify such changes. For cost control, managers compare budgets to actual cash flows. Purchase orders, labor hour charges, amount of overtime worked, absenteeism, accounting variance reports, accounting projections, income reports, cost exception reports, and the like. To control the schedule, the project manager examines benchmark reports, periodic activity and status reports, exception reports, activity on Arrow and activity on Node networks, Gantt chart, the master project schedule, earned value graphs, and probably reviews the WBS and action plans. But it needs a brief mention here. It is basically an investigation that count to identify and locate all elements of a project. The project manager may find a particular activity perplexing or not understand why it is taking longer than it should or costing more than expected. An audit would provide the data to explain the unusual nature of the discrepancy. The project manager may choose to do an audit or have the organization's accountant perform the work. A large variety of new tools have recently become available for the controls of projects, such as benchmarking, quality function deployment, state gate processing, self-direct teams, the design build approach, and so on. Some of the important analytic tools available for the project manager to use in controlling the projects are variance analysis and trend projections. Both have been discussed. A budget plan or expected growth curve of time or cost for some task is plotted. Then actual values are plotted as dashed lines as the work is actually finished. At each point in time, a new projection from the actual data is used to forecast what will occur in the future. If the project manager does not intervene based on this projection, the manager can decide if there is a problem. The action alternatives exist, what they will cost and require, and what they will achieve. Trend projections chart can even be used for combined performance, cost, time charts. This is the end of the lecture. Thank you.